guys, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be about Obito Uchiha vs Shisui Uchiha. I just thought this would have been an interesting fight if it had actually happened in the series. Every Naruto that loves those Uchiha smackdowns. I mean, Sasuke vs Itachi is easily top 5 on everybody's favorite Naruto fights. On the internet in general, you don't see Shisui and Obito come up a lot. People are either comparing Madara to Itachi or Sasuke to Madara. Fun fact, the Naruto community likes to pretend Obito doesn't exist, mainly because he was a poorly written character. As for Shisui, the guy is barely in the series. We only see him in Itachi's flashbacks because he died before the series even began, and Obito is the reason why the Naruto manga begins in the first place. Just to be clear, I'm not going to talk about Obito. I'll compare Shisui to Zetsu Cloaked Obito, Yellow Mask Obito with the 9 tails, Orange Mask Obito, and finally Rinnegan Obito without the tailed beasts. I'm going to use the one and only version of Shisui that we know of, and I'll pretend that he has this Susanoo that we saw in the Ninja Storm game cutscenes. So Shisui has 3 things going for him: his Susanoo, Koto Amazukami, and his teleportation. Now, Shisui is a background character without feats, so keep in mind that it won't be easy for me to argue in his favor. I can only assume his capabilities based off statements thrown out in the manga. I also have to briefly explain his controversial Mangekyo Sharingan ability to my understanding, since it's never heavily been explored, so my judgment towards it is going to be based on what I've seen of it. The only known drawbacks for Shisui's Koto Amatsukami are that it can't be used consecutively and that it can only be used on one person at a time, as shown by Danzo, who used it on Mifune instead of everyone in the 5 Kage summit, and Shisui planning it to use it on Fugaku instead of the entire Uchiha clan. And Danzo continuously emphasizes that it's not that effective of a jutsu both in the manga and OVA. In the anime, there's a conversation between Hiruzen and Danzo and Shisui concerning Koto Amatsukami. Shisui tells both Hiruzen and Danzo that he'll use Koto Amatsukami to make Fugaku think about coexistence between Uchiha and the village, to which Danzo replies, "I doubt that manipulating only Fugaku will be enough." Shisui then responds by saying, "I'll just have to try," instead of, good point, Danzo. I guess I'll manipulate as many Uchiha as I can." Shisui himself was not confident about his own jutsu. The first matchup is Zetsu Cloaked Obito vs Shisui. Initially, I thought Shisui easily takes the victory in this one because of his Koto Amatsukami. At this point, Obito doesn't have any genjutsu experience nor resistance that we know of. There's one thing that this version of Obito has that might give him an edge, which is Guru Guru, the ancient Zetsu that possessed Yamato. It's as good as if Shisui is fighting 2 opponents. Like regular genjutsu, Koto Amatsukami has a weakness that if you have an ally present, they can snap you out of it or make you aware that you're being controlled through dialogue, thereby breaking the genjutsu in the same way Ao did with Mifune. Hypothetically, the fight begins. Shisui casts his Koto Amatsukami. It will only affect Obito since Shisui doesn't know that Obito is sharing his body with Tobi. Since there's an interval between each usage of Koto Amatsukami, that gives the Zetsu attached to Obito a window to strike and potentially kill Shisui in the process, since Kamui can negate any other form of assault that isn't genjutsu. Obito with his Hashirama cells boasts of stamina. Shisui is not outlasting him. If Shisui decides to use his other ninjutsu instead of his genjutsu, they won't do a whole lot since they can't physically damage Obito when it's intangible. In the anime, we got to see Shisui using after images that were generated by his teleportation. I don't see how clones are going to help him against a guy who can phase through anything. And this Obito has dealt with multiple opponents before without any problems whatsoever. He's not the guy you should engage in close combat. Shisui cannot capitalize on Kamui's time limit because Obito doesn't have to stay intangible for 5 minutes consecutively. He'll just constantly switch between phasing through Shisui's attacks and tangibility as shown in his fight with the hit and miss Shinobi and Danzo's subordinates until he catches Shisui after a couple of exchanges. If Obito gets caught in Shisui's genjutsu, the Zetsu attached to him will break him out of it. Given his loss to Danzo, I don't see Shisui figuring a way to counter Kamui, or the fact that Obito has Zetsu helping him out. I see this messing with Shisui a lot. I don't want to sound like I'm in favor of Obito, but let's give Shisui the benefit of doubt and say he knows Obito is actually getting help from Zetsu. Shisui will have to resort to his basic Sharingan Genjutsu that can trap multiple opponents at once. But the problem with that, basic Sharingan Genjutsu requires eye contact, and Zetsu does not have actual eyes. He can only navigate through the battlefield via Obito. That means the only person vulnerable to Genjutsu in this scenario is Obito. But if you want to believe that Shisui can trap both of them without eye contact, then sure, he stomps. But I'm leaning towards Obito winning this round with 6 out of 10 difficulty. On the second matchup, Yellow Mask Obito with the Nine Tails vs Shisui. This version of Obito is powerful in Genjutsu that it plays the whole Nine Tails under Genjutsu with just his base Sharingan, and effortlessly controlled it from a distance all while fighting Minato. I'm putting emphasis on the Genjutsu part because that is Shisui's fighting style, but things aren't looking good for him because Obito is just as competent in that aspect. Shisui has to worry about both Obito and the Nine Tails, with Kurama wrecking the battlefield and Obito slipping through objects charging at him in order to suck him into the Kamui dimension. All this might be too much for him to handle. The fight starts, Obito summons the Nine Tails, and Shisui tries to cast his Genjutsu before Obito does anything else. He'll be forced to cast the Genjutsu on either Obito or the Nine Tails. If he casts Koto Amatsu Kami on Obito, then he still has the Nine Tails running while trying to kill him. And remember that Kurama is battle smart compared to the other Tails beasts. As strong a fighter as Shisui is not taking on the Nine Tails at winning. Or Shisui casts Koto Amatsu Kami on the Nine Tails instead of Obito, then he has Obito to deal with, who is more than competent to take both Kurama and Shisui on. If Shisui casts the Genjutsu on Kurama with the instruction to kill Obito, all Obito has to do is to override Shisui's Genjutsu and reclaim control over it. Now I see a scenario where Obito and Shisui start competing for control over Kurama, with Shisui spamming basic Sharingan Genjutsu on the Nine Tails and Obito overriding it each time with his own Genjutsu. That will be bad for Shisui because Obito has more stamina than him. He is definitely going to outlast him in that regard. And casting Koto Amatsu Kami in a 2 against 1 is bad for Shisui, since he can't use his visual prowess for some time after casting it. So it doesn't matter who Shisui traps in Koto Amatsu Kami. If he chooses Obito, then he'll get wrecked by Kurama. If he uses it on Kurama, then he gets beaten by Obito. So the best Shisui can hope for in this matchup is a draw. The third matchup is the most fair because Obito does not have the Nine Tails or Zetsu to aid him. It's Orange Mask Obito. I'll continue to emphasize on Shisui's Koto Amatsu Kami because I don't see him winning any other way. This version of Obito is still intimidating because he has had 17 years to get stronger and more experienced with his abilities. This is the same Obito with the powerful Genjutsu that broke the law of the Naruto universe. A perfect Jinchuriki cannot be controlled by Genjutsu because the tailed beast will counter it. But no, Obito did it. Obito is a god at using Genjutsu at this point. Although I won't claim that he can counter Koto Amatsu Kami with his Sharingan, I see him finding ways around it. This matchup is looking like a Shisui vs Danzo scenario where Shisui decides to Genjutsu Obito right off the bat and Obito uses Izanagi to break out of it and sneak behind Shisui and instantly warp him into the Kamui dimension. When it comes to ninjutsu, Shisui only has fire style that Obito can just phase through. Maybe Shisui thinks, this is time for me to whip out my not perfect Susanoo. Obito slips right through it again. This will only serve to exhaust Shisui's stamina. If Shisui uses his body flicker, he's still not touching Obito. He does not have the Rasengan to use in combination with his speed like Minato, so his body flicker will only make him hard to catch. This matchup really depends on how they both use their abilities, as I already mentioned that Obito is definitely catching Shisui off guard with Izanagi and Kamui, and also Obito is smarter out of the two, so it's kinda leaning in Obito's favor. I'd say Obito wins 6 out of 10 difficulty. The final matchup is Rinnegan Obito vs Shisui. Just to clarify things, Rinnegan Obito is like the upgraded version of Pain plus Kamui plus Hood style. This Obito survives Raikiri to the heart, tanks a KCM2 Rasengan from Naruto twice, survives Tailed Beast extraction. His durability is off the charts. I brought this up so maybe anyone thinks Shisui might likely damage Obito. Nah, he has Hashirama's ability to heal instantly. For the sake of fairness, I'll address Koto Amatsukami once more. If Obito gets hit by it, he'll sacrifice his Sharingan for Izanagi and use his Rinnegan powers to fight Shisui. I think no one will be upset that Rinnegan Obito storms with minimum difficulty. Thanks for watching the video all the way to the end. Please check out my other Naruto content if you are a Naruto fan. Feel free to correct me if I got anything wrong. Consider hitting that subscribe button. Leave a comment, a like, and share this video with your friends. See you on the next one.